We now return focus to the BARP Barbados Light and Power Joint Resilient Roofs Project. Executing unit, the BARP Charitable Trust Personal Assistance Fund. Now joining the BARP 50 Plus radio show is Reverend Clayton Springer of the BARP Charitable Trust. Welcome to the show, Reverend Springer. What are your thoughts on this joint BARP Barbados Light and Power roofing project?
I think we need to indicate to the public one of the methods by which support can be given to the trust, as well as what we are capable of doing, particularly with the donations that people make. As you said, Barbados Light and Power quite generously provided some funding last year for BARP to spend, particularly on roofs in Barbados of particularly elderly persons, with a special preference, if necessary, for BARP members. And BARP, as you know, has the trust, which is the charitable arm of the trust, which also has a subcommittee, which is called the Personal Assistance Committee. And that committee is charged with the responsibility of doing investigations of persons who may have a need and would have requested support from BARP. The trust is the engine that drives that particular process. Now, when therefore the money was provided by Light and Power, the trust developed some criteria with the support, of course, of BLP, of the Barbados Light and Power, in terms of how we're going to come to the decisions as to who would benefit. Like we said, it was obviously elderly persons, preferably persons who were BARP members, and definitely persons who had a need that could be established. So what we have done once we got referrals, because we then had to identify persons, and we asked some churches and other organizations who would have a large number of older persons in the membership to supply us with names of persons that they felt would have a need of roofing support for the houses. And we did have some 20-something persons whose names eventually came to us. We narrowed that list down when we examined the criteria down to about 12, 13 persons. And from those 13, we were able to amass a list, technically speaking, that covered all of Barbados. And we then engaged in quite a professionalization of the process. We would have done some very comprehensive socioeconomic assessments of each applicant, and that included an interview. It included, obviously, a site visit to see what was really on with the house. And these visits would have been done in collaboration with a builder who obviously has the professional expertise to advise and in some cases guide us towards what was the best solutions for the problem. And eventually we were able to complete the expenditure that was given, leaving just $6.06 or so in the till. We spent that money so wisely, and we spent it on 4 major projects, all having to do with roofs. The recipients were all older persons, a mix of men and women. And what we realized was that these persons, in most cases, were persons who had medical challenges along with the problems with the house and the roofs. And what we were able to do was to complete 3 of those major projects by the end of December last year. Amidst all the COVID-19 problematics that developed, we were able to fight through that, and we completed our 4th project just a couple of weeks ago and spent the money wisely and well. Now, one of the amazing things that, if we could try to paint a picture of who these people are, yes, they're all elderly. All of them are over 65 years of age. The oldest person that would have benefited directly is in their 70s, two persons in their 70s, 72, 74, I think it is. But in between there, we see in many, many cases, one I can identify is a lady who was medically unfit for quite a number of years. She is a wheelchair user, and her house was in a very precarious situation, not only with the roof problem, but with siding material and all kind of stuff that needed to be repaired. And one of the things that I can say is that when you see the circumstances before and after the repairs, and then you see the expressions on the people's faces, it is worth all of the challenges that we was going through to get the names, done the investigations, write reports, and have the committee approving those cases. Particularly thanks to the roof we're talking about, in all cases, you imagine the joy on people's faces when we double check with them. Initially last year when we had some heavy rains in November, I remember there was a situation of two elderly brothers whose roof was in an extremely bad state, and they didn't know where to turn when the rain set up. And when that roof was finished and the first set of rain fell, for the first time in many, many years, they didn't have to be shoving water out of the house or looking for something to cover down because there was nothing to cover really. The roof was just, let's say, paper. But when they saw the first rain fell, Peter, and no rain water came in, that was their joy was complete. However, that joy does not match with how they behaved when Elsa passed and they realized there were no issues with water. They were the happiest persons, I believe, in the universe. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. The solutions that BARP and Clayton Power, through the implementation process of the trust, have been able to generate simply because of collaboration, a compassionate approach, a community-minded approach, and a desire to improve the lot of the elderly persons who would have made tremendous contributions to Barbados. Another situation, this is a lady who also would have had to retire medically unfit because of problems with her spine. And over the past 3 years, she would have had tremendous loss, a mother, husband, and a daughter. And obviously, the husband used to be the mainstay of the house in terms of doing a lot of the maintenance. But since he died 3-4 years ago, the house had fallen into disrepair. And the roof again was problematic. And when we did the assessment, she was at her wit's end because she didn't have what it takes to get the roof fixed. And she was really, really in a very depressed mode. But when we said to her, well, look, your situation has been approved for action, and the job was actually finished. Again, the ecstasy on this woman's face, because she has a granddaughter who lives at the same house, who was preparing for exams, and with the threat of rain coming and problems developing and getting worse every year, then we actually again double-checked after the job was done and the rains came. Again, we saw what relief. And one thing I want to say, Peter, really to you and listeners, is the fact that sometimes we do not understand the emotional and mental trauma that people go through when they have poor housing, especially with the roofs. You might be able to get away with the side. You might be able to get away with a piece of the floor that you can avoid by putting something over it. When you have a defective roof that leaks from every nail hole, or rusted galvanized that is porous and is, flapping and that kind of thing, it is a very burdensome weight on people's mind, because obviously in the house are virtually all your possessions that you would have worked for, saved for, and are dependent on to carry you through until you leave this life. But when the rain falls, even as people when the rain set up, your heart is in a panic. Your pressure tends to go up, and all kind of emotional harrowing goes on in the lives of people who have roof problems. So we cannot underscore enough the importance of having projects such as this one that we've completed so far in the public domain, in the public space. And some people say, okay, you only were able to fix 4 houses, but those are 4 of the worst that we have been able to identify. And the number of persons who we've helped, again, it may seem like a small number, but we look at the quality of life that those persons now have and the ongoing relief that they will experience that will prevent them from having heart attack, having high blood pressure, having ulcers and all kind of other diseases that will then impact upon the health profile not of themselves but the country. So when we solve one problem, even though it may seem like a small number, the spin-off effect is multiplied 1 million times in what could have happened but didn't, because you affected one solution. So my thing is that individually we can do a lot of work. When we work as a collective, we can do so much more. And then when we recognize the impact at a national level of what we're doing, that also then creates a mental, emotional wellness that then permeates through the society or the community where we live in. And those are some of the intangibles that I think we miss out we are not as compassionate as we could be, when we fail to make contributions to the development of our communities. And that is why corporate Barbados has a major role to play. I know corporate Barbados is called on to a lot of things. And I believe that when we recognize that we have the growing elderly population that we have in Barbados, that demographic really deserves much more direct focus than sometimes we are able to give or are willing to give. Simply because we feel, well, okay, they're old, they don't need anything. And we ignore them to our own peril because we miss out on so much of, let me call it, the blessings that we can receive from doing the right thing to the right people at the right time. And the right time is all the time, Peter, of what service we can give in alleviating problems of housing. So as we are in the hurricane season, it is not too late for any individual or any entity to make a sizable contribution financially to BARP Charitable Trust, because we've demonstrated to Barbados Light and Power our capacity and our readiness to stretch the dollars that they have given us. And we can assure any other entity anytime that we will do the same with whatever they are able to give us. So let the appeal go and let the funds flow in and see the result in the benefits to our country and to our older persons.
Considering the damage that has been done nationally by ELSA, would there be any plans to repeat this project in the future?
BARP is ready. We have persons that we can call on to assist with the assessments that are professionally done. All of the reports that we talk about have been done by professional social workers and professional builders. So we have the resources available to do the investigations. What we don't have are the funds to do the work that the investigations throw up. We would love, well, not only Barbados Light and Power, but any other company who recognizes that there is a need and there are solutions that they can fill to come on board, make the contributions, and see where the money goes. We've been able to provide a report to Barbados Light and Power that spells out in detail what we have done with every one of the dollars that they've given us. And from my understanding, they are quite pleased with what we have done. And we are ready to receive any other funds that they are willing to give. And I believe that they will give. And in their giving, they can challenge other companies to do the same. Now, one of the things we do not do, as we would have been discussing earlier, we do not publicize people's property. We believe that once we do the job, we can speak in specific terms of what has been done. But the public doesn't need to see a picture of a family who is self-based. The facts are there for themselves. And once the company itself is satisfied that the job has been done, that is the satisfaction that they have contributed to improving people's lives.
So you are pretty much respecting the dignity of the persons.
Exactly, because it's critical. I am usually very petrified, to be honest, Peter, when I look in the paper or on the television and see people's agony, see the lack of dignity that they're subjected to, simply to make a case for getting assistance from the state or from any other company for that matter. It does something to some of us who are professionally trained in social work, who see these kinds of levels of embarrassment. We see children, we see the names, we see the faces, we see the schools, we see everything about them. And those children, when they grow up next 5-10 years, somebody will point them and say, hey, I remember seeing his mother doing this and her father doing that. And people, even though we do not...
Reverend Springer,
yeah.
I would even say that from the time they go to school on Monday.
Yeah, oh, fine, okay.
Yeah.
You're quite right. Almost immediately they are subjected to ridicule. And that's the unfortunate reality in our society, where people do not empathize with the situations that come to our attention. We rather laugh at, we rather put stigma on people, and that lasts for a long time. And while they may get some physical comfort from the support somebody gives them, look at the emotional trauma they go through and the self-image that is ruptured, the ego damage that is done, and the stress that they're subjected to by bullying and the stigma that is attached to it. So I am using this platform deliberately, Peter. Now you give me the opportunity to request of us as Barbadians. Yes, we want to give give. And I believe that some people expect corporate Barbados to show proof of what they have done. But I believe that we have to be able to help and don't demand the pictorial representation that is so graphic in the pictures or on the news for that matter. It is not dignified. It is dehumanizing humanity to a level that really is unacceptable. We can do much better than that. And if you want to follow the biblical mandate, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. But you see, as I said, I understand that the public that gives money want to be sure where it is spent, because there's all kind of talk about corruption and favoritism and all kind of stuff. I know those realities.